Buonasera and welcome. With Transcend Oceania this season, we were slowly transitioning from COVID-19 here in Fiji. We joined hands with our rural communities, beginning in Vanua Levu at a sense-making, serious Talanoa with community leaders, women, men, and youths, with real-life stories and situations that speaks about climate and environment change. Climate change is for real in these communities, looking at its impacts and effects that they see and experience on a day-to-day basis. The rising sea level, coastal erosions, and changes and extreme weather patterns, all of which has had great impacts on community food and economic sources, a greater risk to human security. To transcend conflicts and by advancing sustainable peace and development through justice and nonviolence here within our small island states in the Pacific, it is more about co-creating dialogue and decision-making spaces for climate justice and human security. To achieve this is to be able to reaffirm, address root causes of climate change, understand more and learn about the ecosystems and their environment is important for Tawake Village. Tawake is engaging in a research on blue carbon ecosystems and livelihoods with the CSIRO groups to better understand their environment, build more prevention and protection plans for the benefits of future generations, building relationships, engaging with island states surrounding Oceania, international states, and global society to advocate that climate action is critical. Join us on the Met Talanoa at Tawake Village.
Kinda kimni na vata ni Talanoa na Justpeace Talanoa Bure erto varota kana songo na Transcend Oceania. Itigibungan na nodder Talanoa au kere rao ni vakamadalata kimni. Na damuni na nomuni vanua ke na itavio ni ngarava e na lomani vanua.
Tangu sumsuni tan roksi ngalibu. Nugue busa brunga oribodo ena matangali oribodo. Nangona oni au tarati ni tutuni ena luta ina vanua turanga ei oribodo. Ya au bina ni rani itu mbau televi mai na uduni vanu mai dae ena mengravi into na program ina tubuliti nga metraide na vanua waturanga ito ai.
Ina vale. Na nito yatumai na singaneno andi na nisai kabito kandona kana nungu talita kana nungu baravi. Arida na nungu koro ni kotoravita na baravi rei vinaka. Arida talenga na kau bulan-bulan wabu kita na nungu koro. Maritakatiko ni nindo na yau lebu iti kubikim do waitui watakei na vanua. Kera wala nga ni vakamadalata se dava na bimbi ke nayanga ni waitui ke na vanua kubikim ni na lewe ni vanua waturanga korebo.
Nasarwali. Na yau itu mai waitui wate vanua ina nei buri bula saranga ni vanua waturanga. Timu mai bertun tumatua sa non riburu tini enra ina menra ni tu waitui mbawra na tiu vanua
do na ngauna balavu ni sambula tiu kina na lomani nomuni vanua ni bera ni mai taura na tutu ni vilutaki na dalam ni vanua turanga korrigo oni sarai dati konan rakini vanua ni sasarava nandraki nimbula na numundo vanua mai nangauna ni tumbutaki mai kina medha mai nangaunongo dendo ni sarai dati ko sona visau e vinaka ko to me weekend na vinaka sona visau e ko to me weekend na ndrendre
tamanda i waitui ni tu waitui e manda ar do siro ngamarto ni tumatua rangole waitui rawan ena rawati ibi eso rangan iya mi ado menangon ima misambula ino sa dindui balilai sa renre na ena sangatai na vi aiso meran ni memirawatan ena bulata emi waitui bawro nga ina iwanua ena sa libum bena visionin rai saya tuai sa levana aina dun miti burun dun miti ina sarama gabro ni ga imbula na vi andun mimbula ena wanua ratiti ina na mamatui manta arenga dun vi shauli we oto ena buni tu wanua bawro ni tu waitui
Kani malmale waitu ni mamadal tatiko ni nangoneli wer nangase era sirongayani sarao mai na vika era ngander mai waitu. Ya nangonongo do sa toso sarayani lokayawa.
dina
Madava na lebu ni kai rao mai enandua na singa. Ito to batatiko na vingono sa oti se sa andua na kenabisa nangonongo.
naka bango sa ayoti manda rorao na lebang sangarai si ena pa asabi inongono sandi renre to na ena patubotani menang bula ti manda ena bali sa lain-lain ay memroat inongono me patubotani na nonrang tungaw na nilito matua
Me wakana kau ni savarita katiko. At dawan bekana numuni na numa se wakamuna tiko na visa wiko tumingo na renre wai wakatal nga kina na loma ni binwa.
manda daw marurui na waitui marurui bro na atiwanwa iya sa andun imam minit tambah satu o sa pasabutai ena marurui na waitui bawro na bolo ibonwa arambe na huna na numa ni sa autama na pi anrenre mem sa sotapati nangaw na sarangao mbaw sa eoti ni waitui rani rasirong orto matur tu automai iya ngono nimbo sa sabutai imam na tambah satio sa ami leba malu na sautu ni bono mai waitu bawro na sautu mai bono
Dambe keso nangon sala era marure kina na numni yau mai wai bakatal nga kina banua o ira nang kasilio.
mai waitui oto ina na tubo ba bonua me rawan nira wangatay na tubo aray meron ni maru itu na rambulyo itu magani tutungan dalaw sa linggul itu oto na sali bumindar muria meron din na muria meron din daro obati na non ratulawana turang bawro na may bonwa rumah tagali pacar itu nga ay garabi enabun ena maru na
Kena balbal na tubo ya marure kina na yau mai wai bakatal nga kina banua. Ke rawan lang niyo ni barita keso na numni na numan belete so na vi kaira ni zaka me tango makina na numni banua tango makina na yau mai wai banua kabakata lang kina nakasaya do tipo ena matan numdo kor
ano numan ni direrayang enabu ni tamban ay barungol lebat tu minutu bonwa sa ona blue carbon marine research meran dito di eva ni tuwi pati na punua meran tu tobol itu nadaba mituti ibu ina meran maruili surina na yaw ni kono baturang de oto ini duna itu ran tu meta aba meran ni pasalating imam ni tambah satio meran ni min raidelis o na ayangan revo na puno toae meran maruili surina na yaw naka na ni satio na lubeni uno baturanga o rivoto tamada da utilis to na babdi bina ni rani mai raidi non da tu uno baturanga na ni tutu baba matani tu meran di ibilisu ina na dava ai oto ngan rebi meran ya buti dia no tu uno yabi enda kede na leoni uno baturanga sa oto ba nui di enda ni na raida batamena no tu oro na buni enang karabi na vi aiso meran di witile suwiro ina na itutu warto no garabato no tumatua se ona enang marui no tu ya umbula mai wai bawro ngai ni bonwa asanu ita ina ni program oni ni na i endabat meran dar rei dabat mai na dave ngan revi na dave si ati na dave tu wai ni ina meran na witile ina no tu bonwa merawan ni na autale suwiro nabi asan daun bulu mai waitui nabi asan daun bulu mai banua iyo sa tabuta na paabi bina en rawan mai garabi na program o me rani narongoda viti pate e vurura na bun e ngandreg me rani marui na bono baturang ito ay.
My name is Esep Daunu. I'm from Lakemba, and I represent Tawake Mothers Club, and I am an active member of Tawake Women's Club in Tawake, the Cakaudrove.
I understand the Women's Club has done a lot of things to help develop the community here in Tawake. And I also understand the importance of the sea and the land to the women of Tawake. Can you briefly talk about how important to women, the women of Tawake, is the sea and the land?
Vinaka Paulo, as you can see, these two main things, the great, they are really connected. The sea and the land. And from the land, we gain everything that is, we have our livelihood, we gain everything that we need to support our family. And also in the sea, that comes also in the sea. Same procedure, it is one of our main source of income also. So as you can see, we live by the sea, and there is only one thing that comes from the sea, that a lesson by this climate change, that is also a rise in water level, and that also comes during high tide. And my village, when it's high tide, the tide comes around like 10 to 20 meters into the village green. So you can see that we have a seawall that has been destroyed for the past 20 years. And also this rise in sea level also destroys one of our main source of income. That is pandanus leaf, voi. That is one of the main source of income in my community. And also we face lots of difficulties in trying to adapt ourselves into knowing what is climate change.
So in order to mitigate this, in order to challenge the human behavior that results in challenges to our own survival, what do you think the women of Tawake should be doing?
Vinaka Paulo, we have emphasized, we have a day been selected for Tawake Vakor. So we have to collect all the rubbish, we have to bury all the tins, and also I went on my other ways of telling my fellow members of the group of how to dispose of rubbish. Like we can have a human compost, peelings of natural food, and also have tins being buried, and all plastics and diapers. Like diapers is also a main source of rubbish. I went on telling all my young mothers if they could have the chance of placing or disposing their diapers properly, like burying up in the sand, or rather than putting it up along so other people can dirty the environment and even pollution, creating pollution.
I'm Unise Lindy, I'm from Yaroi Matuku in the Lau group. My husband and I are being posted here by the Methodist Church of Fiji as the Methodist Church minister here in Tawake. And we've been here for 4 years. This is our 4th year.
So I find that a very interesting contrast, given that both of you and Talatala were brought up in the city, and now you're living in a very rural community here in Tawake. And you've just been talking about the changes that you've noticed. I found the waterfront beautiful yesterday, but you said 4 years ago when you arrived, it was much more beautiful than this. And the reason is because there's a lot of pollution on the seafront. Most of it actually originated from somewhere else. So if we continue the conversation to talking about what are the causes of these changes that are bringing a negative impact or challenges and difficulties to the Vanua and to the people of Tawake.
Really affected by this behavior. As we can say, it's more a responsibility as a person, as a human. Different if it was caused by natural disaster or climate change. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of pollution, actually rubbish. And I noticed one of the containers that was from one of the nearby islands. So it's just, if we can be more responsible in not polluting the sea, because it actually ends up somewhere, and if it doesn't end up somewhere, it will actually kill the sea life.
Thank you. So a responsible disposal
Yes.
of rubbish and waste. And you're saying this is irresponsible human behavior that's causing this. But you also said a little while ago that some of the changes that are bringing challenges and negative impact to the Vanua and to the lives of the people is caused by climate change and natural disasters. Okay, so that's good to know that. What do you think, particularly the women of Tawake and the Vanua of Tawake, can do to mitigate against these changes that are bringing negative impact into the lives of the people and the Vanua? So what can you do before you even get help from anybody else from outside? What can the people of Tawake do? What can women of Tawake do?
We can actually be more responsible in disposal of rubbish and start within our family in picking up rubbish around our compound and just be more responsible, because if we don't, then it'll just affect the environment and our children down the line. Yes, just that. And I'll go back to your questions about climate change. One thing we realized on history here was we've been told on the history of Christianity here. I'll be speaking from the church perspective. Christianity came into Tawake right after, a few years after Christianity came to Fiji, which was in 1835, and probably about 3 years or 4 years it came into Tawake. And they said that the place where Christianity was given by the forefathers, there's a spring of water coming from that. So if you taste, the water here in Tawake is very unique. When we came, we really liked the taste. But there's one thing that I've been told by the elders, that what wasn't used to be before, because of heavy downpour, they've been polluted. The drinking water had been polluted after a heavy downpour. So probably climate change for evaporation process had caused heavy downpours and leading to affecting our water spring here in Tawake. And also the minister's house is up on the hill behind the church. I think it was late last year when there was a heavy downpour, there was a landslide. And luckily we had a kavika tree right where it ended, the slide. So that kavika tree was being planted by one of the congregation a few years ago. So what we are trying to do is planting trees around the compound. So when there's a slide, it is protected.
So these are some of the things that you're doing to mitigate against the
Climate
changes
change,
brought about by
yes.
climate change. But I also like the fact that you talked about earlier on, if you're not careful with your rubbish, disposing them in the sea, it will actually kill the very things we depend on in the sea.
It's just having to appreciate what God has given us. Sometimes we just overlook the little blessings that we have. But when we really think about it, we have to count our blessings as it comes. Because most of the climate change, I know, is caused by human behavior like pollution and other things. So maybe just be more careful and treating nature as how God had wanted us to treat whatever He has given us as good stewards.
Back in the olden days, our elders and ancestors embraced in creative ways of coping. They used songs, stories, poems, and dances when faced with challenges or struggles with new environment changes. For example, changes that may be difficult, emotional, or are traumatic. Our history originally was kept and passed on through these creative arts from the elders to the next generation. That speaks volume of our culture and identity as a people, singing of changes. Aua moe moe aoe, oelela uloto. Aua moe moe aoe, oelela uloto. Oleli, olela. And non-stop. Sanduana wangani viti, sanduana wangani viti. Salakingo go golikiwai. Salakingo go golikiwai. Oliwale. Singing about the Fiji boat, the Wanganiviti. In those days, our ancestors used canoes, going out fishing. Satumbuma inaloa loa, satumbuma naloa loa. Au nanu nanu mamele sutale, au nanu mamele sutale. That speaks about the black clouds, changes of weather, the rising alarming dark clouds. And what do? Do we go back? These were the concerns of our people right back in those days. Join us with a meke, a dance from the Vanua of Tawake, a meke that our elders composed, my grandmothers and mothers performed and continued to pass on to us and to our next generation. Their resilience as a people coping with the impacts of climate change. travel onwards with time and with intergenerational change, climate and environment change continues to be an important common area of interest where conflict evolves. Traditional approaches has built the resilience of our people that they have continued to strive on, not as much as victims, but more so as survivors of the changes and prevention a priority for human security. Inak.